Do you remember playing Red version, beating Professor Oak? You had to choose a Pokemon, the pressure was building, you had no idea what to choose, you started to panic. He said something swifty like, "Don't f it up, kid," and then you picked Bulbasaur? Me either, I was a Squirtle kid. So anyway, while choosing your first RF lens is less stressful than that, and I don't think that you can choose wrong, you can certainly choose best for you. If you are new and you're considering the RP or R as your first camera, I'll link a playlist so that you can go through all these lenses in depth, but let this video serve as your starting point if you're really stuck. The three obvious choices, assuming that you're coming into the Canon full-frame mirrorless system without any existing EF glass, will be the 35mm, the 50mm, and the 24-105 F4-7.1 STM. I'll touch on a few other good choices at the end, but because of their popular focal lengths and affordable prices, these are going to be the ones that most people start out with. The RP is currently on sale, but the normal price of this camera is $999, the 50mm is $199, the 35mm is $399, and the 24-105 is $399 as well, unless you get it with the kit, and then you can save $100. The combo of the RP and the 24-105 is $12.99. Let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of each of these plays. I don't actually own the STM version of the lens that we're talking about today. I've reviewed it, I've compared it head to head to the 24-105 L version. We're filming on that right now, and I'll say a few words to that at the end. The biggest advantage of the kit zoom lenses are that you get to explore different focal lengths. They aren't going to be the best in any given scenario, but they're going to be serviceable across many. If you're getting your camera to travel with, and particularly if you want to do outdoor landscape shooting while hiking and such, this is the choice. Pick it up first and save that $100 by getting the RP kit. It's wide enough, tight enough, light enough, and after using this extensively, you should have a much better idea of how you want to build your kit than if you started with a prime lens alone. It also has image stabilization, which is a big plus if you're doing any type of run and gun video clip shooting. And that image stabilization will help you when you need to shoot at slower shutter speeds. One drawback here that the other two lenses don't suffer from is the darker maximum aperture. It comes with the territory at this price and form factor. Probably a non-issue for those shooting mostly outside, but if you plan to shoot mostly inside, and one of your gigs is, say, in a dark coffee shop, then you might want to reconsider. One of the main benefits of the 50 and the 35 is the bright f1.8 maximum aperture. This is going to let in a lot more light than the 24-105 and allow for some nice background blur as well. 50 will be a handy focal length for portraits, and many will prefer this over the 35 if you don't necessarily need to show your subjects in their surroundings. The 50 is also more affordable. If you're trying to limp into the Canon RF full-frame mirrorless world, this is currently the cheapest way to do so. You'll probably want something else more quickly if you start with the 50, but the nifty 50 is popular for a reason, and it will complement just about any other lens you decide to pick up next. If you're not used to shooting with a dedicated camera, be forewarned. If you're anything like me, you might be a little self-conscious about walking around with this in the very beginning. It's definitely a different feel than just snapping quick pictures with your phone in public. Carrying your camera around everywhere will help to get rid of that feeling, and this is the most compact package to start carrying around. We don't have any immediate cons on the 50mm, other than the fact that you won't be able to explore different focal lengths, so this might make it harder to choose your next lens. For instance, if you want wider after picking this up, you won't know if you want a 35mm or wider still. Same thing on the long end. If you want tighter, you may not have a good handle on whether you want an 85mm, a 100mm, or even more reach than that. You can now see that the 24-105, despite some of its weaknesses, will help you appreciate how to grow your kit in the future. You'll have the same exact con with the 35mm lens, and you won't have as much reach. While this can be very helpful in tight spaces indoors, if it were me and I started with this lens, I would end up wanting some extra reach pretty fast. The good news is that if you go with the 35mm first because it's good low light prime, and you dig it, the 85mm is basically the same build and performance, just bigger. And the only other con with the 35 is that it is the most expensive, assuming that you were to save the $100 when you pick up the 24-105 kit with the RP itself. With the increased price, you will get additional functionality though, and that starts with the low light performance. You'll get the same fast f1.8 maximum aperture. It's not quite as tiny as the 50mm, but it's still small and light, and largely more versatile, I would say, in the sense that you can crop in to approximate the 50mm, but you still have the wide option. This would be the preferred prime if you want one lens for travel, because it's wider and it will allow you to shoot broader landscapes. The wider field of view will also let you dabble in some astrophotography to see if that's something that you like shooting in the future as well. And the 35 has image stabilization, whereas the 50mm does not. For handheld video work, this is preferable, and it will allow you to slow your shutter speeds when shooting stills handheld. Finally, it's a 1:2 macro, and you can get much closer to your subjects. So if that's something that you're interested, if you're taking shots for a storefront with products, for example, this is going to be the play. If this feature is essential to you, the 35mm is the cheapest RF option to be able to shoot very close to objects. And as a bonus, let me comment on some other affordable lenses rapid fire. I'd steer clear of the 16mm for starters. I haven't used it yet personally, but 16mm is considerably wider than 24, and I would have liked to have seen that lens come in at $249 or $199 instead of the $299 that it's priced at currently. When you're ready to consider this later, you'll know. I also haven't used the Super Zoom 24-240 yet. If you're willing to spend a lot more at the start, there are similar pros and cons to the 24-105, but you'll get a lot more range. The 85mm is tricky. If you start with that, and only that, it's similar to the 35. You might like it, but you'll quickly want something on the other end of the range. In the meantime, you'll have the image stabilization, the macro capability, and an excellent low light portrait lens. If you don't need the macro capability, I like the Rokinon 85mm a bit better. And finally, the 24-105 L lens, which I personally got bundled as a kit when I first purchased my Canon RP. I had a camera beforehand and I knew a bit more about what I wanted, and I was quickly falling deep into photography, both personally and for paid gigs. It would be about a year until I got a weather-sealed body to pair with it, but this was a driving reason for me to go with the L version, as I would use it most often for personal photography outdoors and to build my entire kit around it. Here's a deep dive if you're trying to decide between the two. If you're new and this video has helped you, pop a sub. My name's Dan, and on this channel we're on a mission to review all the RF glass and beyond.